Hey guys, this is your friend, your personal coach, your business coach, Adrian Davis with Crown Davis Memberships. I've just gotten finished with a long Monday, but I want to make sure that I presented something to you that hopefully will be beneficial for you that you can review over the rest of this week. Just want to let you guys know that we're coming to an end of the Be Driven series. Next week will be the last one, as that we'll be finishing out the year. And so, if you want to see any of the other Be Driven series, you can go to my YouTube page and check it out. Today, we're going to be talking about you are good enough. Understand that you are good enough about anything that you're dealing with, any goals that you're trying to move forward. Don't sit there and belittle yourself or sell yourself short. Understand that you are good enough. And that goes with having a healthy self-esteem. Self-esteem means thinking highly of yourself, uh, as you would your friends or your peers. I can't tell you about how many people I know that will speak highly and speak well of others, uh, to a huge degree. But then when it's time to speak of themselves, they find every negative thing they can find about themselves for why they can't move forward, why they can't accomplish their goals, why they're not good enough, why they shouldn't appreciate themselves. Squash it. You don't need to deal with that. Those thought processes, you need to think positive. Self-esteem is defined in this way. It's the experience of being competent to cope with the basic challenges of life and being worthy of happiness. Now, I like the idea of this saying that you're being worthy of happiness, because what happens is some people have good things happen to them and then they find all the reasons why it should not be. And they're really waiting on the negative to actually happen. Understand that not only to have self-esteem is one thing, but to actually maintain it is another. Maintaining self-esteem, you can do it in a few ways. You can celebrate your strengths and your achievements. You can forgive yourself for any mistakes that you've made. You don't have to dwell on your weakness. You can change the way you talk to yourself. Don't be so negative, be positive. And don't judge yourself against unreasonable standards. I like to use this example. If you made $40,000 last year or this year currently, don't set your standards to be $1 million next year. I mean, I am an inspirational speaker and I believe that you should put your bar high, but I think you still need to be reasonable in why you're doing it, because you need to have steps on moving up there. So, unless you have a good idea that's been tried by fire and you know that it's going to yield you $1 million, I would err to the side of caution on this one and say that maybe I'm dealing with 100,000 or maybe I'm dealing with 150, but not $1 million after your first or your previous year was a $40,000 year. Now, understand that self-esteem is vital in so many areas of our lives, but for you that are business owners, it's definitely vital to you. In your business, you'll need to share your products and services with people either online or actually in person. Now, this is the amazing thing about it. To build self-esteem, you got to do those things, but then you also have to have enough of self-esteem to actually go out there and do it. So you got to do one or the other. You got to either build your self-esteem by having success, which means that you have to go out there and make the initial step. It's kind of like the dog chasing his tail or trying to figure out which one came first, the chicken or the egg. One thing has to happen. Either you have to step out there because you have enough self-esteem to step out there and present your product or service, or you build your self-esteem by having someone say you have been successful in, with your service or presenting me with the service. Understand resiliency is something that you really, really have to have that works hand in hand with that, because being resilient is showing the ability to bounce back when bad things happen. I look at it as like having a rubber band. As long as that rubber band hasn't been stretched all the way out and it's not coming back, it bounces right back. And so you need to have that resiliency. You need to be able to bounce back from things, even though it looks like, I don't know, when things are going to look up for me. Check out this stat. This stat says 85% of people have low or suffer from low self-esteem. That's 85% of people, not 85% of business owners, not 85% of some particular nationality, but 85% of people. That's amazing. So, you know how I do. I want to share a story with you because I want to make sure that we work on our self-esteem. This story is the story of Darlene. Now, the names have been changed and some of the details are different, but you probably heard this story, and if you haven't, please share this story with someone else when they're dealing with this. Darlene was a young lady who lived in a small town, and of this small town, people measured their women's by cows. They would simply say if a person looked, pretty much middle of the road, this woman is probably a 3-cow woman, or she's a 3-cow girl. And so what would happen is they traded. The fathers would talk to the young man who wanted to wed his daughter, and they would trade off. And so in this type of society, Darlene was not looked at to even be a 3-cow woman. In fact, her own father would say, "I'd be lucky if I just get 1 cow for my daughter." And so one day, Darlene was in the town walking, being meek and humble, and not really something that everybody wanted to feast their eyes on. But she ran into a guy named Lucas. Now Lucas, every woman wanted him. They'd be like, "Oh, Lucas, I just want to measure up and be the woman that you want me to be." But he wasn't really interested in all these other young ladies, especially after he had a conversation with Darlene. The conversation went so good, and what was inside of her stood out so much to him that he wanted to have another conversation with her. And pretty soon, that one conversation turned into 2, and that 2 conversations turned into 4, and because of it, they got pretty close. So one day, he went up to Darlene's father and said, "I want to wed your daughter." And the father put his head down, and he was like, "Okay." He said, "Come on, give it to me. How many cows?" And Lucas said, 6 cows. The father's eyes bugged out and said, "What in the world? 6 cows? Do you know who you're talking about?" Lucas, not really understanding what was going on, he said, "Well, sir, this is really all I have. It's 6 cows. I hope that's enough." And the father said, "No, it's more than enough. I just hope that you're not overbidding yourself. You're talking about my daughter?" He said, "Yes, sir." So they went on for the preparations for the marriage and moving forward with this new couple to come together. And all of a sudden, the day that the transition needed to happen, Darlene knocks on Lucas' door, and he opens the door and he says, "Darlene, is that you?" And she said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh my gosh, you're beautiful. I mean, you're lovely." And so the father was standing outdoors, and he was looking sad. And so the soon-to-be son-in-law said, "Sir, the cows are back there in the back. You can have them." The problem here was the father now saw how beautiful she actually was, and he felt like he was underbid. See, nobody really got over 4 cows in that town, but this guy saw so much in Darlene because of her self-esteem that came out in those conversations. She was the highest paid or highest traded for woman in the city. Lucas felt like he got a deal out of it. The father felt like he got shafted. But then at the end of the day, the person who really had the goods was Darlene. People understand sometimes we underbid ourselves. We let people talk negative to us, try to take away our worth. You can't do that. You have to know that you are good enough. If you set your mind to do something, you can and you will do it. Look, we only got one more session, and I want to make sure that you're driven. And for this week, I want to make sure that whatever goal that you have been hesitating about moving forward because you don't believe you're good enough, scratch it, because you are good enough.